Sorry, boy, but his captain's got to teach his men what happens to those what crossing.
Captain's got to teach stuff.
Good evening from the Bat Cave. It is Saturday, February 10th, 2024, and I'm going to try to take you guys through the book of Exodus. I'm going to try to do this in like 3 settings. I'm going to breeze through some of the stuff on just all the different, parts of the temple or the tabernacle that they build, so that should save us some time, but I'm going to try to walk you guys through this in 3 sections, and just, again, this is something where you don't really have a lot of prophecy that intertwines with it. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of extra details that happen in Leviticus and Numbers that are going to be right in the same period, and most of what takes place in the book takes place in about 1 year. So it's really a narrative. It's a narrative of how they came out of Egypt. That's why it's called the Exodus. I'm going to call this series "We Out." Because that's just them leaving Egypt, and then Leviticus is going to go through kind of additional rites and ordinances and some things that happen when they start to actually do the temple worship. How 2 of Aaron's kids get killed. Numbers is just going to go through their failure to go into take the promised land and the time they spent in the wilderness and the things that happened there. And then Deuteronomy is going to be Moses's farewell address as he leads them into the land. So it's it's called Deuteronomy, literally means a second time, and it's a type of the new covenant. It's going to be a second covenant given to Israel that wasn't given to their ancestors. And these are things that you want to pay attention to as you're walking through Exodus through Deuteronomy. You realize there's actually 2 tabernacles, there's actually 2 sets of the tablets, and there's actually 2 covenants. This is something that most people take for granted. Obviously, the Jews did. But God was forecasting in all of these things the old and the new covenant. Okay? So we're just going to start in the beginning. In Genesis 1, he says, "Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came out of Egypt. Every man which came into Egypt, every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher, and all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty. They grew real big. In the land, and the land was filled with them." Okay, so you want to pay attention to the 70 souls, because you're going to have a line when we get to Deuteronomy about how the souls of men or the nations were numbered after the descendants of Israel. So what he's saying is that God numbered the nations, the 70 nations, after the 70 souls that go into Egypt. That's what he's talking about there. You're going to have alternate translations that are going to say after the sons of God rather than the sons of Israel. I don't think that's accurate. I think that's something that somebody put in later because they thought that meant the 70 angels, and they probably just assumed, well, no, Jacob only has 12 sons here, but it's the 70 souls that the nations are numbered after. So God is forecasting in that his intention to save the Gentiles in Jacob. And that's going to be something you want to look for, 12 and 70 popping up in the Bible, because they're going to pop up in Exodus a little bit later, okay? The point is that God intends to save all the 70 nations in Israel, okay? So then he says, "And Joseph died, and all his brethren in all that generation." So we're looking at, this is going to be around 50 years after they go into the promised land now, or into Egypt. But they're only actually there about 210 years total. You want to make sure you understand that they're not in there 400 years. It's 400 years from Abraham getting the promise that they're going to go into Egypt to them coming out. It's 4 generations that they actually spent in Egypt. And Moses' family line is going to count those 4 generations. So it says, "And the children of Israel were fruitful," okay? And then it says, "Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph." And this is, don't overthink this, okay? Your secularists are going to tell you the Hyksos were kicked out and this other Egyptian nation came in, and it's just not that. It's just a pharaoh that now the new pharaoh never knew Joseph. Okay, so you have your first pharaoh born who doesn't know Joseph. Remember, Joseph is going to be in charge about 50 years later. Then you're going to have the pharaoh who is probably living while he's there, who's going to remember Joseph, and then he's going to die, and eventually the next Pharaoh's going to take over, and he's like, who the heck is Joseph? Why are these Jews in charge of everything? This is what he's going to think. And he's going to realize that these people have waxed exceeding mighty. We need to put these guys to hard labor and quit letting them run the government, basically, is what's going on, okay? So he says to his people, behold, the people of Israel are more and mightier than we. In other words, they're outnumbering them. They've grown to about 2.5 million now. Okay, remember they went in there not just with the 70 souls, but also all those servants that they had. So you're probably looking around 1,000 people going into Egypt. You have a whole community going in, and that whole community is going to keep growing, and then they're going to keep marrying in with the Egyptians, and probably the best families of the Egyptians with the best looking daughters are going to get their daughters married in with the house of Israel, because the house of Israel is right hand to the Pharaoh and running the government. So you're probably looking them as being very interwoven into the Egyptian kingdom, and you're probably going to have just a couple of families that are up there with them. One is going to be the house of Pharaoh, and the other one's going to be the priesthood, the house of, I think it's the priests of On, because they were the one people that were exempted when Pharaoh took over everyone's land. And you basically have three houses of those people who are, if you will, the aristocratic families in Egypt, and then everybody else is basically a peasant. So they do get more powerful than the Egyptians, and so he's not justifiably scared, but he's reasonably scared that they might just run him out. So it says, remember, they're also sitting on Egypt's border, and so he says, let us deal with them wisely with them, or shrewdly with them, lest they multiply and it come to pass that when there falls out a war, they join also with our enemies and fight against us, and so get up out of the land. In other words, they're going to join our enemies and then leave. Okay. Now remember, if you look at some of the extra biblical literature on this, one of the guys who's going to track a lot of this stuff in the Qumran caves and stuff like this is going to be Ken Johnson. He's going to talk about how there's these stories of stuff that happened when they were in Egypt, and you're going to have traces of this in the book of Chronicles. You're going to have, Jacob is going to talk about some land that he gave to somebody when he's talking to Joseph and right before he dies, and he says he took this land from, I forget who it was, from the Amorites, one of the Amorites with his bow, he said. So they actually fight battles. They go back and forth to find wives. I mean, they're in and out of Egypt. It's not like these guys are prisoners here. It's not until they get put into slavery when they're locked in. And what you really have is, remember, Egypt is afraid of them joining their enemies. And so what happens is Egypt gets into a war with the Hittites. And the Hittites are the other big kingdom. You have 3 big kingdoms in the earth at this time. You're going to have the Hittites, the Amorites, and then the third one is going to be the Egyptians. Those are going to be the 3 main kingdoms. And you're going to have not the Mycenaean, but the Minoan civilization in Greece, but that's basically Greeks that are ruled over by the Captorim. So those are Egyptians too. And in the era where you have this war between Egypt and the Hittites, see, those are going to be the 2 main kingdoms. Canaan is going to be a major part of that, and so they're going to lock down Egypt. And there's actually a story that happens with one of Jacob's sons, and I forget which one it was. It was either a son or a grandson, basically he gets locked out of Egypt because they're on a journey back and forth. And he gets locked out, and I want to say it's something like 14 years or something like that, where he can't see his wife because Egypt is locked down, okay? And it's at this point where you realize, again, the Jews are going back and forth. Remember, they've still got relatives in Syria. They're actually, you're going to read about descendants of Reuben and Manasseh and stuff like that are going to take this land called Gilead up here. So you're going to have some stuff going on, and they're going to be back and forth. And, of course, Egypt's at war now with the Hittites, and the Canaanites were kind of friendly with the Israelites before they come in and take everything. But then you're going to get a century where they're basically locked into Egypt, okay? And so once you get to that place, Egypt is changing their foreign policy. They're looking at these Jews going, okay, they're in and out of the land. They pretty much run the government here. They're super powerful, and they're friendly with our enemies. And now they're at war with the Hittites, and that's threatening to them that the Jews are too friendly with everybody. And so what they're really saying is let's basically enslave them and confine them to the land as a tributary people. And so it says, so therefore they set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. They made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick and all the manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them to serve was with rigor. Now, the Jews are going to do this too to the Canaanites. So don't look at this as like this is a strange thing. This would have been a normal thing that you would do with a conquered people, okay? It would be normal for you to give them a tribute. Remember, David's gonna say he puts them to saws and pickaxes and stuff like that. He's not saying like he's actually killing them with saws and pickaxes. He's saying he's making them hew wood and stuff like that for him as a tribute. So in other words, these guys are going to live in the lowlands, and he's going to be like, you guys need to give us, 5 cord of wood per household each year. In other words, you got to cut down a bunch of trees and give those to us as tribute. Or, they're going to do things with brick. They're going to do things with, maybe it's straw, whatever it is. Maybe they're going to have these guys haul rocks or something like that. We're building our cities, so you're going to haul rocks, and this is part of this is like a tax that we're charging you, okay? So the point is the Jews aren't their conquered enemies, though. The Jews actually helped Egypt and saved Egypt, and they're treating them like this. So this is why it's so wrong. And it said, the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, and that so remember they're still multiplying now. Now they're just stacked because they went from doing just some light administrative work and some wandering around with sheep to now they're masons, and so these guys are all like jacked up now, and they're like, crap, we just went from having these guys like outnumber us to now outnumber us, and they're all jacked. So these guys are all diesel and they're roided out and stuff like that. And so like now we need to get rid of these men's. And so he says, he goes to the Hebrew midwives. Now these would be women who are professionals who would go around and help women deliver babies. When you deliver babies, you wouldn't go to a hospital. You'd have a woman help you, and you'd stand up, and she'd be physically helping you give birth to that baby. Okay. So he said the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other one was Puah. So these are professionals, okay? Now it just says to the Hebrew midwives, which means they could be Hebrews or they could be Egyptians. I think they're Hebrews, but we'll see. No, I'm sorry. It could be just midwives of the Hebrews. Let's see if some other versions say. It just says the Hebrew midwives. So we'll see that as we go. And anyways, he says, when you do the office, in other words, when you do the work of a midwife, let's say the office of a midwife, I don't like that. When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it's a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let it live. In other words, we want to marry those girls, and we don't want those boys marrying our girls. We want to outnumber them. He says, but the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king commanded, but they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives to them and said, why have you done this and allowed the boys to live? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth to the midwife before the midwives get there. In other words, they're already born. We can't just come in and kill their babies. We're just women, right? Now, they lie in order to not murder, right? In order to not get killed for not murdering. And your Calvinists are going to look at this and they're going to be like, they're going to note that in their Bibles and say, see, this is where you're justified to lie to the government. This is why you can oppose a tyrant, right? And they're just going to capitalize on things like this. I actually, in 1 year, I heard it in 2 different churches taught where it's okay to lie. And they literally were just like, one of the pastors was Rob Bell, and he said, if you can help somebody get better medical care by lie. And he uses this as a justification, okay? We don't look for reasons to lie. if you're in a situation where you lie to save someone's life or save your life for saving someone's life, I'm not going to get legalistic about that, but we don't proceed to formulate rules on when it's okay to lie. The general biblical prescription is tell the truth always. We tell the truth always. But that doesn't mean we're going to literally hand over someone to be murdered, okay? Like, spirit in the letter, y'all. Spirit in the letter, okay? We tell the truth always, but I am not going to hand somebody over to you to get murdered. I'm like, nope, haven't seen him. He went that way, right? Like, anyways, this is not complicated. But don't get into this. Don't get into stuff and start formulating when it's okay to lie, and then you use that as a principle, and then you start expanding it out. And here's all these reasons that you can lie, because you're going to come up with more reasons than you think. So he says, so God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and came strong. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, every boy that is born to the Hebrews, you shall throw in the Nile, and you shall let every girl live. Now we're just going to kill him. He says, now a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him 3 months. In other words, this baby's he's just a beautiful baby, like just really good looking. Want to pinch some cheeks, so you're not going to kill him. And then when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, plastered it with bitumen and pitch. This is important. She makes a little miniature Noah's Ark for this dude. And she put the child in it and placed him among the reeds in the bank of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the river while her attendants walked beside the river, and she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maids to get it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and he was crying. She took pity on him. This must be one of the Hebrews' children, she says. So she knows right away. She probably knows all about the king's edict, and she's like, this must be one of the Hebrews' children, because that's the only reason you toss a baby in the river, but not like actually kill it, is if it's one of the Hebrews' children and you're trying to escape. So she knows what's up. She's not dumb. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse. Oh, wait. So it says Pharaoh's daughter said to her, let's see. Then his sister says to Pharaoh's daughter, so that's Miriam, shall I go and find a nurse from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for her? And Pharaoh's daughter says to her, yes. So the girl went and called the child's mother, okay? So notice it's not naming Miriam and Moses' mother and all this. They're just telling the narrative. This is what happened, okay? Now Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child and nurse it for me, and I'll give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed it, but that's Moses' mom. And when the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him to her as a son. She named him Moses because she said, I drew him out of the water. So the child's past weaning age. He could be as many as 5 years old now. That's how old Isaac was when he was done weaning. Or he could be younger. No, things can change over time. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and saw their forced labor. So Moses is going to be about 40 when he does this, ish. He's going to go into Midian, and then he's going to come back at around age 80. So he's grown up. He's 40 years old, and he's still going to live to be 120, so he's a third of his life. And he says he's going to go see what's up with these people. I think he knows he's a Hebrew. I don't think it's a secret. Again, he probably wasn't a tiny little baby when he was taken away from his mom. He probably was nursing till at least like 2. It was normal to nurse longer back then. And he looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And he went out the next day and saw 2 Hebrews fighting, and he said to the one that was in the wrong, why do you strike your fellow Hebrew? He's like, can't you see I'm trying to help? I went and murdered this guy for you. I suicided him. And he answered, he said, who made you ruler and judge over him? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And then Moses was afraid and thought, surely the thing is known. Oh, crap, everybody knows I killed that guy. Word's getting round. These guys apparently don't see me as the hero that I thought I was. I need to scoot. And so Pharaoh heard of it and sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh. He settled in the land of Midian and sat down by the well. So now is this the same Pharaoh that Moses is going to come back and confront? I'm not sure that it says, but we'll see. Let's keep reading. The priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came out to draw water and filled the troughs to water the father's flock. But some shepherds came and drove them away. Moses got up and came to their defense and watered their flock. When they returned to their father Reuel, he said, how is it that you've come back so soon today? So I want you guys to understand this. They're living in total freedom for probably a good, say, 100 years. Okay. Then they go into bondage for probably, let's say 50 years. Okay. No, I'm sorry, because Moses is 80 by the time they come out. So there's 180 years. So they really only have from the time this Pharaoh shows up who doesn't know Joseph and starts enslaving them, they've got like a generation. And in that generation, that's when they get buff. And then it's in that generation where he orders them killed. And it's in that generation that God raises up Moses. So it's not like God just left him in bondage for generations and generation. Within one generation of them going into bondage, and then Pharaoh starts to kill their kids, that's when God raises up a deliverer. Okay, so you don't want to think of like God's just sitting there going, "Oh, they haven't cried hard enough," like pretty much he's got a plan to see the deliverer come pretty quickly here. And the moment that Pharaoh tries to kill the babies, that's when the deliverer comes. Okay, but he's not actually going to deliver them for 80 years. Okay, so then they said, an Egyptian helped us against the... Oh, I'm sorry. So it says, so the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. This is where he fled from Pharaoh. Now he's in Midian, okay? Now Midian is going to be in the region around where they're building Neom right now, okay? It's going to be inland from that. You're going to see where Mount Sinai is. And in that region around there, you're going to find the Midianites. So let's see. So this is exactly where they're building Neom right here. That's Midian, okay? And you're going to see other maps that suck because they're based on the idea of Mount Sinai being in the Sinai Peninsula. That's not true. It's Jabir al-Lawz. That is Mount Sinai. And this land right here is Midian. It's basically the other side of the Red Sea. So you cross the Red Sea, you're on Midian, okay? And when Moses wants to go there, remember, the Jews are living up here, okay? This is Goshen. And so all you have to do to go there is you just cross the Arabian or the Sinai Peninsula and then go down. You don't need to part the Red Sea every time you cross, okay? You just cross the Sinai Peninsula and then go down. And if you got a good healthy camel, you can get there in like a day, I think. It's not super. It's far enough away where it's easy to skedaddle, but it's not so far away that it takes weeks to get there. I mean, having all these people walk, they're going to go down to here and then cross the Red Sea, and all of that is going to take something like a month. And that's because they have a huge train of people. They're going to go down here, then they're going to cross the Red Sea, then they're going to stop, and they've got flocks and stuff to happen, and groaning and complaining, and they got to figure out what manna is and all this stuff, and then they end up at Jabir al-Lawz, okay? But that's because it's a massive train of people, not just one guy getting out of town real quick, okay? So Moses is going to land in Midian, and the priest, Midian, he has seven daughters, and they come to draw water, and they fill the troughs of water in their flock, but some shepherds come and drive them away. Now, it doesn't say they're Amalekites like in the movie, but let's imagine they're Amalekites, because Amalekites were hanging around that region giving people guff. So maybe it was. Moses got up to their defense, and they watered their flock. When they returned to their father Reuel, he said, "How is it you've come back so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian helped us against the shepherds, and he drew water for us and watered the flocks." He said, "We've got an Egyptian, and he's ripped, and he did all the heavy lifting for us." And he said to his daughters, "Where is he? Why did you leave the man? Invite him here to break bread." And Moses agreed to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughters Zipporah in marriage. That quick. "You defended my daughters? Yeah. Which one you want? The good-looking one." All right. Deal. That was it. It was just settled. And she bore him a son and named him Gershom. And he said, "For I have been an alien residing in a foreign land." Okay. Now this Gershom, his son is going to be the one who starts the counterfeit Mosaic priesthood. This is important with the Danites. This is the son of Gershom. Okay. After a long time, the king of Egypt died. So it is a different pharaoh. So it's probably the same pharaoh who enslaves the Egyptians, who doesn't know Joseph, And then he kills the kids, probably a generation later, and then 40 years after that, Moses is, or he wants to kill Moses. So he's probably an old man. He's probably like 80 around that time. And then he's going to die not long after that. So in the 40 years that Moses is in the wilderness, the Pharaoh who did all the oppressing is going to die. He's going to die. And so it's going to be his son who's in charge. And that's why the movie is going to take place where it's like, the son of that guy is blah, 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 but they give you 3 pharaohs, and I don't think you need 3 pharaohs. I think you just need 2. I think you just need one who doesn't remember. The movie is going to say how there are 400 years in bondage. The movie is wrong, okay? And the movie is going to say, my father killed the firstborns of Egypt. Well, no, like one guy can be in charge, and like he can rule for 40, 50, 60, 70 years if there's nobody contending with him, just depending on how young he is when he takes the throne, okay? Now, it could be 2, but the point is that Pharaoh's dead. So it's going to be his son that Moses is dealing with, and it probably is a son that was around, he would have been like a cousin of his, the way they were raised, okay? So he said, after a long time, the king of Egypt died. So it was a long time later. The Israelites groaned into their slavery and cried out, and out of their slavery, their cry for help rose to God. So now they're really itching and moaning, okay? And God's like, all right, let me go grab Moses. He's had time to chill out and have some vacay. So he says, so God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not because of your groaning, because I have a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Y'all are worshiping idols with the Egyptians. They are worshiping idols in the Egyptians. It doesn't get into it specifically here, but later on in other prophetic books, like I think Ezekiel and Amos and stuff like that, it's going to get into the fact that they were worshiping idols in Egypt, okay? So God looked upon the Israelites, and God took notice of them. Just out of curiosity, I want to see what word they're using for God here. Elohim. Okay, so they're talking about the 3 persons of the Godhead, okay? So, now Moses kept the flock of Jethro's father-in-law, the priest in Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb, okay? So Mount Sinai is also called Horeb. It's the same mountain. I don't know why they call it both things. Oh, yeah, actually I do. So Sinai is actually named after Sin, who's the youngest son of Canaan. So the story is, and I think I heard this from Ken Johnson too, but it might be someone else, is that Sin was the one who was in charge of making the laws in it was either Nimrod's kingdom or the Neo-Chaldean kingdom, which is probably more likely because that would have been his cousins, the Amorites, who were in charge of that kingdom. Okay, so the Code of Hammurabi, it is very likely that Sin was the one who designed that law, which is ironic because it's going to have a lot of similar stuff in it to the laws that Moses gets. Well, for all we know, he could have got it from God. Literally, the Code of Hammurabi could have come from God, and he could have literally been a righteous man, and he just prayed to God for some wise laws to govern the people once the Amorites took over. And God says, here's some laws. And he's like, well, how do I know these are going to be good laws? He's like, trust me, dude, they're going to be some good laws. And a lot of these laws, the practical civil laws, are going to be very similar to the laws of Moses. And it wouldn't shock me at all if that was so. But anyway, Sin is going to leave after that, and his descendants are going to migrate and end up in China. So Sin, that's where the name China comes from. Actually, the Cantonese language is a derivative of Canaanite, I believe. At least I know there's Chinese that believe that too. Okay, so we could all be wrong, and there's some philologists that says you're all stupid. Here's what the truth is, but I have not seen that report, so I'm just going to go with it. Okay. So the angel of the Lord appeared to the flame of the bush in the midst of the bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed, okay? So it's Mount Sinai before, now it's Mount Horeb, okay? And it's going to be called Mount Horeb. Elijah's going to go there later. You're going to see this mountain being revisited here and there. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, the Lord called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he says, here I am. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standeth is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Jesus is going to use that line to say he's not the God of the dead, he's the God of the living. Therefore, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are still alive. They're just in Sheol, waiting for their times. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and they have heard their cry because of the reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and bring them out of the land into a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. So notice how there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them now. Okay, some of them leave. There are more that they're going to be grabbing land from. I think the Girgashites are still there. I forget what other ones are there. But some of them are going to leave the land, okay? But all of these groups are still in the land. So he's like, I'm going to take it from them and give it to you, okay? Now, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is coming to me, and I have seen the oppression wherewith Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee to Pharaoh, that thou may bring forth my people to the children of Israel out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he says, certainly I will be with thee, and this will be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people of the land of Egypt, you shall serve God upon this mountain. He's like, you're going to show up and be like, I saw a bush that burned, and that's where we're going. How do I know? I saw a bush that burned, and God spoke, and he said this. And Moses said unto God, behold, when I come to the children of Israel, and shall say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And now, this is Moses, okay? I'm not a fan of the Quran, but the Quran describes Jews pretty well. They keep asking questions for more details because they don't want to do what they're being told to do. Now, this is ironically, these are the people who Moses is living among, who are going to say this, like 1,000 years later. Like they just keep going back and asking God more questions for specifics because they just don't want to obey him. And Moses is going to prove the point right here. And he says, and God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he says, thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. In other words, he's like, I am what I say I am. If I'm not, then why would I say I am? So just say I am. Just say I am. And they'll get it. The existing one, the eternally existing one. I am. I'm not like anything. I am. I just am. Okay? And God moreover said to Moses, thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. And this is my name forever. And this is my memorial unto all generations. So he really wants this I am thing to stick in your head, because someone's going to show up and say I am later on. Okay? And he says, go and gather the elders of Israel together and say unto them, the Lord God of your fathers, Abraham. So this is going to say Yahweh, the God of your fathers. So let's see. Yahweh Elohim, Yahovah Elohim of your fathers. Elohim, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, this word literally translates to gods, but I don't think it has the definite article in front of it. I could be mistaken. Okay, so this is it doesn't have the definite article. We add that to clarify it in the English. But I mean, remember, it's going to say Yahweh Elohim. So in other words, Jehovah, gods of your father. Okay, so it's a plural word, but without the definite article, which means it's not saying the gods, three persons. It's saying Yahweh gods. Okay, so it's somehow it's three persons with one name. And so it's a singular name of God. But the word is technically God's, okay? So these are kind of like your forecasting of a Trinity here. And then he's going to say, let's see, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob appears to me, and I have visited you and seen that which is done in the land of Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of your affliction of Egypt, under the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt, and ye shall say unto him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us, and now let us go and beseech thee. We beseech thee 3 days' journey into the wilderness. So apparently it only takes 3 days to get there, okay? That we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Now notice he's supposed to go in front of Israel, or in front of Egypt, with all the elders, okay? Now the elders are going to be 70 old men, okay? They're going to be the heads of the families that all came in there. And he said, I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, and I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and it will come to pass, when you shall go, you shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourneth of her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and raiment, and you shall put them on your sons, and put them on your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. So I want you to pay attention to this. We all know God hardened Pharaoh, but he's not just hardening Pharaoh arbitrarily so he can destroy Pharaoh. Remember, Pharaoh made these people do a bunch of slave labor after God used them to bless Pharaoh, which means they owe them some money, okay? God is being just here. He's saying, you know what? I'm going to harden Pharaoh, so he is going to act a fool, and then I'm going to just make it rain on Egypt until they're like so scared of you guys. When you ask for their gold and stuff, they're just going to give it to you, okay? He's basically like, I'm going to shake them down until they pay you your wages for 100 years of slavery and killing all your kids. And is that okay? Can God harden Pharaoh? Is God just to harden Pharaoh so that he shakes all that money out of Egypt as payment for, I don't know, like 250,000 murders? Is it okay? Can he do that? Okay. He's not just hardening them just to harden them. Remember, this is the son of the man who was probably a kid when his dad just like killed everyone. He's like, I'm going to kill all these people. Why? It's not easy being Pharaoh, man. You know, more money, more problems. You just have to kill some people sometimes. He's no better. He's not a good guy. He's letting people worship him as a god. These are the people who a generation or two before, they were saved by the God of Israel. And a generation or two later, they're going to be like, now I'm God. Okay? You didn't really have Pharaoh being worshipped as a god before this that I'm aware of. It seems like it's a cult that starts. I mean, the whole Pharaoh thing was more like a priestly kind of role, I think, in the beginning, and then it evolves into being like a cult, like he's the god on the Nile, I believe it is. And he really is a type of antichrist. So he's got it coming. Don't just think like, you know, he was just minding his own business and God just decided to harden his heart. No, he had it coming. And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice, nor will they say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, what is that in thine hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast to the ground. And he cast to the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put it by his hand, and he caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. And that they may believe the Lord, the God of the fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. And the Lord said furthermore to him, put now thy hand in thy bosom. Put your hand right here, like this. And he says, and he put his hand in the bosom, and when he took it out, it was leprous as snow. So it was white and flaky and crusty, and skin was falling off it. And it was like, that's nasty. And he goes, now put thine hand in thy bosom again. And he put his hand in his bosom again. He plucked it out of his bosom. Behold, and it was turned again as the other flesh. Now, I'm sure there's some typological symbolology here, having to do with Jesus healing the lepers, or, you know, God is the God of the dead and the God of living. I don't know. But he puts it in his hand and it comes out a zombie hand, and he puts it back in and it comes out a regular hand. And that's a neat trick that most people can't pull off. And he says, it comes to pass, and you believe not thee, and hearken not to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign, but it shall come to pass that they did not believe these two signs, and are hearken unto thy voice. You shall take the water of the river, and pour it out in the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river shall become blood on the dry land. So he's giving him 3 magic skills. Okay, you can make a stick turn into a snake, and then turn it back again. You can make your hand turn to a zombie hand, and then turn it back again. Or you can just scoop up some water and pour it out. It's going to turn to blood right there in front of him. He's like, that should get their attention. And Moses said unto the Lord, now, God is not like, oh, really? The Egyptians know how to copy that stuff? He knows. He knows, remember? He's going to harden Pharaoh's heart. He's like, I'm gonna throw some stuff at him. I'm going to throw some supernatural stuff at him. But it's going to be the kind of supernatural stuff that they're like, psh, I can do that too. So he's going to harden their hearts, okay? So the Lord says, first he says to the Lord, remember, I don't even know what name to call him. They're like, how are they going to believe me? Now we're on excuse number 3. The Lord said, I'm not eloquent, neither heretofore nor since thou hast spoken to thy servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Like, really? You spit that out really fast, Moses. You've been coming up with excuses fast as a lick, but suddenly you don't know how to talk good, huh? Okay. And the Lord said unto him, who hath made man's mouth? I'm about had it with you. Who maketh the dumb, the deaf, the seeing, the blind? Have not I, the Lord? Have not I, Yahovah? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and I will teach thee what to say. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. Send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. That's got to be said better. He says, oh my Lord, please send somebody else. Okay, send somebody else. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. He gets frustrated with Moses a couple of times, okay? His anger was kindled against Moses, and he said, what of your brother Aaron the Levite? Look, I want you to understand how our God is a God of free will, okay? He compromises with people. He tells them to go do something, and then people negotiate with him. This doesn't just happen more than once. It happens with Ezekiel. He tells Ezekiel to bake some food over his own poop. Set your poop on fire and bake some bread over it, because I'm going to make you a sign for the famine that's going to come in the thing. And Ezekiel's like, oh, please don't make me touch poop, Lord. And the Lord says, okay, we'll back that off a little bit. So this is how I look at this. The angel of the Lord, when he's here on earth with people, he's reacting with people in real time. He is not like, I knew you were going to say that, so I sovereignly already decided to do blah, blah, blah. Okay? He's like, okay, I'll allow it. So this is what he says. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. He says, what of your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he can speak fluently. Even now he is coming to meet you, and when he sees your heart, he will be glad. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. He indeed shall speak to you for you to the people. He shall serve as a mouth for you, and you shall serve as a God for him. Okay? Now, this is what he's saying. Serve as, he's going to be like, you'll be like, okay? So if you go to King James, he's going to say, like, he'll be like your mouth, and you'll be like God. In other words, you're like God, and he's like the prophet. Okay? So you're telling him what to say, and he's just saying it. Okay? This is actually a foretype of something. Okay? Because this is going to be like the Antichrist and the false prophet. It's also going to be like Jesus and John the Baptist. Okay? It's also going to be like God and Jesus. He's foretyping something. Okay? So you're going to have Pharaoh and his magicians, and you're going to have Moses and Aaron. And it's going to be a showdown. So he says, take in your hand this staff with which you shall perform these signs. So you got to take your magic stick. It's not going to work without the magic stick. And then Moses went back to his father-in-law Jethro, and he says, please let me go back to my kindred in Egypt to see whether they are still living. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. Oh, why didn't you say God told me to go there and do some crazy stuff in Egypt? There might be an army following us when I get back. Because Moses is just Moses. He's not a perfect guy. He has to make an excuse. The Lord said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for those who are seeking your life are dead." In other words, the Pharaoh who wanted to kill you is now dead. Okay? So Moses took his wife and his sons and put them on a donkey and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses carried the staff of God in his hand. And the Lord says to Moses, "When you go back to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders that I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart so that he won't let these people go." In other words, I'm going to give you a bunch of tricks to do that his magicians can do too. And he's going to be like, "Okay, so you learned some tricks. Nice. And then you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus says the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son.'" You guys want to pay attention to this. This is a big part of the reason the Jews don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. Okay? They don't believe the Messiah is supposed to be the Son of God. Because it says, "Israel is my firstborn son." And they look at all those prophecies about the Son of God, and I called my son out of Egypt. And they say, oh, well, that's because Israel is collectively the Son of God. Okay? The person Israel, and they still use that, many in one paradigm and federal headship and all that stuff. And they're saying, so Israel is talking about Jacob and the descendants of Jacob is his firstborn son because he names Jacob. He adopts him, okay? And so they're going to say, there you go. Now, when we get to Isaiah, and you get to Isaiah 45 and Isaiah 65, we're going to find out there's an elect one, and there's language that's used in the plural, and there's language that's used in the singular. Because Israel is a type of Christ, okay? But so is the people of Israel. So it's like Jesus in the church forecasted, okay? And he says, "Let my son go that he may worship me, but you refuse to let him go. Now I will kill your firstborn son," okay? So God is telling him how this is going to go down. Now remember, don't think like, oh man, like isn't God giving him a chance to repent? Does this mean Calvinism is true? Oh, he can repent once his son is dead. Remember, God kills Job's sons and Job is righteous. So don't think like, oh man, because God is going to harden him to the point where he's going to kill his own son, like Pharaoh can't repent after that, okay? Don't think like that, because God is telling him, listen, he's already killed a whole bunch of Jews, or his father has, okay? So he's going to lose his firstborn son. You mess with my firstborn son, I'm going to mess with your firstborn son. Oh, you didn't let him go after that? He's going to harden him just so he's going to kill his firstborn son. But the reality is Pharaoh has it coming. His dad killed all these firstborn of Egypt, and God would have been just to kill him right then. Kill the firstborn of the man who killed the firstborn of his kids. Just as just. Whole household of Pharaoh. Okay? But Zipporah took a flint, and then on the way, the place where they spent the night, the Lord met him and tried to kill him. Remember, it's 3 days' journey, and apparently there's inns along the way. There's just places where you can go, like the prancing pony, where they're going to give you a hobbit room, and you can just stay. And when he's in his hobbit room, the Lord just shows up, and he's going to just kill Moses dead. And like, why? Because Moses right now is outside of the people. He was living in the house of Egypt, and then he was living in Midian. Okay, and out there, it doesn't matter if you're circumcised. But if you go into the land of the people, and the Israelites with him, now he was probably circumcised, because remember, he was a little baby when he's taken. He hasn't circumcised his kid. And he says that whoever does not circumcise their kids is going to be cut off from Israel. Whoever's not circumcised. And so God is going to meet him to kill him. Moses or her son? I don't know. It just is on the way that they spent the night. The Lord met him and tried to kill him. The Lord didn't try to kill him. If he's going to try to kill him, he's going to kill him, okay? You say, so the Lord sought to kill him. Let's see what sought means. Bakash, search out. Strive after, make inquisition, request, seek for, desiring. Okay, so the Lord shows up and he's like intending to kill him. Why? Moses should know. He knows he's circumcised. His wife knows. His wife knows lickety split. He's just a slacker. Okay, he just didn't do the thing he's got to do. Now, more than likely, I would guess the Midianites were circumcised too, because they're descendants of Abraham. That would be my guess, okay? She knows. You are not good at this whole following God thing, Moses. I feel like, man, you're going to slip up and not end up in the promised land somehow. This is just me guessing, okay? And so she goes and grabs a rock, a flint, okay? And she's like, chip it off a little bit so you get a sharp edge, and shot. And her little kid is screaming and crying. And she goes and whips the, I forget what it's called, but the little circumcision ring, okay? This is a ring of penis skin. Throws it at Moses' feet, okay? And says to him, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. A bloody husband. In other words, you're going to get me killed. You are going to get us killed. You are a bloody husband. Why didn't you circumcise your son? You knew. Slagger. And the Lord said to Aaron, go to the wilderness and meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of God and kissed him. Now I don't get it. They're in the inn. They're in the inn that they're staying in. So why did he meet him in the mount of God? Maybe they went to the mount of God after that. Maybe. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who had sent him and all the signs that he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered the elders of the people, the children of Israel. And Aaron spake all the words which the Lord had spoken to Moses and did signs in the sight of the people. And they're like, that zombie hand thing. I wasn't so sure when the whole stick turned into a snake and back into a stick thing. But when you did that zombie hand, boy, I'm with you. And the people believed. And when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel and that he had looked upon their affliction, they bowed their heads in worship. And God heard us. He's going to rescue us. Awesome. He's awesome. He is worthy of praise. And afterwards, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they should hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. I want them to offer a sacrifice to me in the wilderness, okay, and have a festival. We're going to do something out there. It's private. It's a Jewish thing. And I need you to give us 3 days journey, which means we're not going to be back for a minute. And by a minute, I mean until the end of time when we take over Egypt. Is that cool? And he says, who is the Lord that I... Listen to this. Who is Yahovah? And we got all kinds of gods here. Who is Yahovah that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not Yahovah, neither will I let Israel go. And they said unto them, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey in the desert, and sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall on us with pestilence or with sword. The king of Egypt says, wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, let the people go from their work? Get to your burdens. Get back to work. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land are now many, and ye make them rest from their burdens. He's like, look, I got a lot riding on this construction project I'm working on, and you got these people taking a break. No. We've got a schedule to meet. All right, I've got a project budget here. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmaster of the people and their officers said, you should give these people no more straw to make brick, as heretofore. Let them go gather straw for themselves. And the tally of bricks, the amount of bricks, which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish aught thereof. For they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, let us go and sacrifice to our God. In other words, they got time on their hands, obviously. So they're whining about their God and stuff. So you keep them busy. Make them get their own straw now for the bricks. Let their more work be laid upon men, and they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words. Stop this foolish talk. And the taskmaster of the people went out, and their officers, and they spake to the people, saying, thus saith Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, get you straw where you can find it, yet not aught of your words will be aught of your work will be diminished. I ain't lightening your load one bit. You're like, but I got bathroom breaks. I got union breaks. I can't make that many bricks. He's like, no, you're going to make that many bricks. Obviously, you got time to whine and talk about your God and get together, have little meetings, little union meetings. Well, then you're going to go get some straw in that time. So the people were scattered abroad throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble instead of straw, and the taskmasters hastened them and said, fulfill your works, your daily task, as when there was straw. And the officers of the children of Israel with Pharaoh's taskmasters that set over them were beaten and demanded, wherefore have you not fulfilled your task in making brick, both yesterday and today as heretofore? In other words, your count is low, and they beat them. They beat the foremen, okay? Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, saying, wherefore dealest thou thus with thy servants? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in thine own people. You don't have no straw, man. And he said, Ye are idle, ye are idle. Therefore I say, let us go and do sacrifice to the Lord. Therefore ye say, let us go and do sacrifice to the Lord. Go therefore now and work, and ye shall no straw be given to you unless yet you shall deliver the tally of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were in an evil case. In other words, man, we are in a bad way. Okay? After all was said, you shall not minish aught from your bricks of the daily task. I'm just going to do this whole thing in King James. You shall not minish aught. You shall not, you don't slack on the number of bricks just because I'm not giving you straw. You got time to union meet and talk about going and sacrifice in the wilderness. Then you got time to grab straw. Time to lean, there's time to clean. And they met Moses and Aaron, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron were like, la la la, we're leaders. We don't make bricks, okay? And they came to them and said, the Lord look upon you and judge, because you have made our savor to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh. In other words, you made us stink in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of the servants to put a sword in the hand to slay us. They're going to kill us, man. They're looking for a reason to kill us now because of you. And Moses returned to the Lord and said, Lord, wherefore hast thou so evil entreated this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? What? It's the hardening the heart process, Moses. Didn't I listen to everything I said is going to happen, okay? You can't just be like, and he let us go. What did I tell you was going to happen? I'm going to harden his heart. I'm going to kill his kid. You're going to get a bunch of gold. You need to trust the process. For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he hath done evil to this people. Neither hast thou delivered thy people at all. Trust the process, bro. Just let it work. Then the Lord said to Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of the land. And God spoke to Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham and unto Isaac and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty. I think it's El Shaddai. But by my name Yahovah I was not known to them. This is important. By my name Yahovah I was not known to them. God never gave his name to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, you have it written in Genesis and Exodus. But Abraham, he remember when Jacob asked for his name, and he's like, why do you want to know my name since it is wonderful or whatever? Why do you want to know my name? Right? He never gave them his name. Moses is the first one he gives his name to. Okay? He's like, they didn't know me by Yahovah. They didn't know my name. Okay? They would just say, the word of the Lord came to me. The word of the Lord came to me. They heard of the Lord, but they never knew his name. Okay? This is something new. Moses is like, so you need to trust me. I'm giving you my name. Okay? So you can go and speak in my name. See, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't do that. They had dreams, they had visions, they interacted with the Lord, but they didn't go proclaim the word of the Lord to others. Moses is doing this. Moses is like number one in all this, okay? So he says, and I have established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians kept in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out hand and with great judgments. And I will take you for me a people, and I will be unto you a God. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under the bondage of the Egyptians. It's like I'm about to show up. See, he has to get hard with me, so that way I can show up and be like, just so you know, Israel, I'm like this. Boom. Looking for this. And he said, I will bring you to the land concerning which I did swear to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a heritage, for I am the Lord. And I don't want Egypt messing with you when you get there, and that's why I'm going to slaughter their armies right before you go. You're going to love this once it's all done. Just wait for it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, and they hearkened not unto Moses for anguish of spirits and for cruel bondage. They are all whining and complaining. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Go speak unto Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, that he let the children of Israel go out of the land. And Moses spake before the Lord, saying, Behold, the children of Israel have not hearkened unto me. How then shall Pharaoh hear me, who am of uncircumcised lips? And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, and gave them the charge of the children of Israel, and unto the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. These be the heads of their fathers' houses. See, let me pause and let me tell you some genealogical stuff now. This is Moses' writing, okay? So I don't know why he waits till the second time he's going to talk to Pharaoh to be like, here's who comes out of Egypt. They're not going to come out of Egypt right now, but he's going to let them know, okay? These be the heads of their houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanak, Pelo, Hezron, Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. These are the elders' families he's talking to. Now, all these guys are probably dead. Maybe not. Maybe these are the current heads, Hanak, Pelu, Hezron, and Carmi. Yeah, it looks like they are, okay? So it's kind of like when he does the Edomite lines, he talks about who was in charge back then, and then he talks about who's their tribal heads now. Well, remember, he's going before them with the elders, and then he's like, these are the elders, okay? And these are the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jaman, Ohad, Jakin, Zohar, and Shaul, the sons of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the sons of Levi according to their generations, Gershon, Kohath, Merari. In the years of the life of Merari, 137 years. So he gives you Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Levi is the third son. And now we're going to do a full genealogy of him. The sons of Gershon, Libni, Shimei, according to their families, the son of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel. The sons in the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari, Mahali, and Mushi. These are the sons of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife. So he marries. This is Moses and Aaron's dad marries his aunt. And she bare him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years, okay? Moses and Aaron's dad. Okay? Now, Moses is 80. Do some math here. His dad lives to be 137. He's still around. Okay? His grandpa was one of the ones who went into Egypt. Okay? You're going to have Levi, and then his sons are going to be Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And Merari is going to live to be 100 and Amram is 137 years. And let's see, Kohath is 133 years. They might even still be alive. I would have to do some math there. No, they wouldn't still be alive. These guys would have been little kids when they went to Egypt. They're definitely there, 137 years. But Moses' dad would have been born in Egypt, and he's going to come out with Moses because Moses is 80 and he's 137. Unless he was like over 50 when he had Moses, he's coming out with him. And he said, Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Izhar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zikri. And the sons of Uziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and Zithri. And Aaron took him Elisheba, the daughter of Aminadab, the sister of Nashon, to wife. And she bare him Nahab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. So Nashon and Abinadab, who are these people? Not seeing them. These might be from another tribe. And the sons of Korah, Asir, Elkanah, and Abiasaph, these are the families of the Korahites. Elkanah, just so you know, is where Samuel is going to come from that line. So he is a Levite. Samuel the prophet. Okay. Eleazar, Aaron's sons, took to him one of the daughters of Putiel to wife, and she bare him Phinehas. And these are the heads of the fathers of Levites according to their families. Eleazar, Aaron's son. So Aaron has grandkids by the time they get out. And that makes sense. He's 80. 80-ish. More than 80 if he's Moses' older brother. And these are that Aaron and Moses, to whom the Lord said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Egypt according to their armies. Now, why is this record in there? I'll tell you why. Because you don't want some people messing around and be like, oh, you're the descendants of Aaron? No, you're not the descendants of Aaron. Who is the priesthood? No, I'm the descendants of Aaron who brought them out of Moses. Here's my genealogy, and it's going to trace back to one of these families. Okay? Just so, like, this is pedigree. This is how you would know. Like, oh, you are one of them. Yes, I'm one of them. Okay? And they're going to still have this stuff in the days of the Chronicles. And you're going to find lists with these names on it. Okay? All up in the Chronicles. And who belongs to the Levitical class, because they can't own land, but they eat the tithe. Okay, they're basically a permanent welfare class. They're essentially the government administration, and then the sons of Aaron are the high priesthood. So you got to show your pedigree because you're the government class, right? So these are these are that Aaron and Moses whom God took out, and then it says these are they which spoke to Pharaoh the king of Egypt to bring out the children of the land of Egypt. These are that Moses and Aaron. So apparently they want to make sure you know it's the right Moses and Aaron. It's not that other Moses and Aaron. And it came to pass in the day when the Lord spake to Moses in the land of Egypt, that the Lord spake to Moses, saying, I am the Lord, speaking to Pharaoh the king of Egypt, all that I say to thee. And the Lord said and Moses said before the Lord, Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh hearken to me? Oh yeah, weren't we just saying that right here with the uncircumcised lips? See, I don't know why he just interjects. It's like, oh, by the way, let me genealogy for a second. By the way, uncircumcised lips. Back in the story. And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god unto Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. See, you guys are going to be like Jesus and John the Baptist coming up here. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh. Boy, it's almost like Jesus and John the Baptist talking to the Pharisees. Kind of like that. That he send the children of Israel out of this land. Oh, what does he say? You put on these people burdens that are impossible to bear, but you won't lift one finger. That's what he says to the Pharisees. Now I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you. Then why are you sending me unto him if you don't hearken to him? Can't you just wait until he is going to hearken and then send him? No, I'm hardening Pharaoh, bro. Trust me, this is going to pay out. This is going to work. You need to trust the process. That I may lay my hand on Egypt. That I may lay my hand on Egypt. Why doesn't he just lay his hand on Egypt? I'll tell you why. Pharaoh's the head of the government of Egypt. And he is going to do some stuff that the people are going to support. And God is going to justify himself in pillaging their goods. Okay? So he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart, and none of the people are going to be like, Pharaoh, listen. Not yet. That I may lay my hand on Egypt and bring forth mine armies and my people and children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch forth my hand on Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, that's 80, and Aaron was 83 years, that's 83, when they spake to Pharaoh. And the Lord spake to Moses and Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak to you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went to the Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord commanded, and Aaron cast down the rod before Pharaoh, and before his eyes it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also didn't like manner with their enchantments. Well, they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So only one of those rods got turned back into a staff. So, And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them. The Lord said, Just because your snake beat our snakes doesn't mean your God's God, man. Everybody's God can make a staff turn into a stake. So that's not going to move me. And then Pharaoh said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, and he refuseth to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out to the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's bank against them, and come with the rod which was turned into a serpent shall be in thy hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in thy hand upon the waters that are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink the water in the river. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thy hand upon the rivers of Egypt, and their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in the vessels of wood and the vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so, and the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river. In the sight of Pharaoh, and the sight of all his servants, and all the waters that were in the river turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Egyptians could not drink water out of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Neither did he hearken unto them as the Lord said. And he's like, See, you just put this powder in the water, and it turns to blood. So he obviously just had a lot of powder. I don't know. Why don't you come up with a useful trick, magicians, and turn the water not into blood anymore, instead of just showing me how you can turn some water into blood? There's a thought. And Pharaoh turned and went to his house, and neither did he set his heart to this also. And all the Egyptians digged around the river for water to drink, for they could not drink the water of the river. So apparently they could still dig around the river and get well water. So if you guys are asking, like, well, when God turns all the water to blood during the last days, how can that work? And these are how people are going to argue these are last days signs. Well, when you turn the water to blood here, you can just go upriver and dig well water, and the well water is fine. Okay? It's just the rivers that are blood. And 7 days were fulfilled. After that, the Lord had smitten the river. So it was blood for a week. And they had to go literally dig in the ground to find water to drink, because that water stank. And the Lord spake to Moses, said, Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs. Okay, now, so the blood thing, remember how in the last days he's going to give them blood to drink for the blood of the servants that were slain and the saints and all that. Well, Pharaoh just slayed a bunch of babies, or his dad did. And so they're giving him a bunch of blood to drink. Take that. Now he's giving them frogs. Why? There's gods and stuff in Egypt over these different things. So Egypt has only a few things. I mean, it's pretty much a desert with a river in it. So they're going to have like flies, and they're going to have like grasshoppers, and they're going to have scarabs, and they're going to have frogs, and they're going to have gods for each one of these things that supposedly are over these things. And God's going to take all those things and turn them on them. And the Nile was the thing that the Pharaoh was over. He was supposed to be the god of the Nile. Well, the Nile sucks now. Why? Because you're a bloody Pharaoh. You make blood, not life. Pharaoh is a death god. Okay? And he said, if you refuse to let them go, I'll smite all thy borders with frogs. In other words, all of Egypt, all the region, there could be frogs everywhere. You're going to hate it. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thy house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and in thine ovens, and in thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both upon thee, and upon thy people, and all thy servants. And you're going to take up eating frogs' legs. There's going to be so many of them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with the rod over the streams, and over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause the frogs to come up out of the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs into the land of Egypt. See, we can make some frogs show up too. What do you guys just show up with a bag of frogs and you just dump them out and like, see, we can do that too? Hold on, man. How about coming up with something useful like making these frogs go away? Oh, well, that's a horse of a different color, Pharaoh. You're going to have to pay some more for that. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, Entreat the Lord that he may take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifices to the Lord. Now, wait a minute. Wait. Well, hold on, Pharaoh. Now, your magicians know how to make frogs appear and blood appear and all that stuff. How come when you need my God to make the frogs go away? I'm sensing a little belief there, Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like, shut up. Then Moses said to Pharaoh, glory over me. And this is now Pharaoh asking Moses to ask his God for help. Okay? Moses is like, got him. He's humbled himself. And he's asking me to ask God for help. And so Moses is going to go over the top respectfulness. And he says, glory over me. This is what he's saying. In other words, he's saying, I want you to look better than me in this situation. When shall I entreat for thee and for thy servants and for thy people to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they remain in the river only? In other words, I'll do it when you tell me to do it. So it makes it look like you're in charge here. Okay? See, he is not trying to disrespect Pharaoh. God is trying to disrespect Pharaoh. Okay? Moses is not. And he said, tomorrow. And he said, be it according to thy word, that thou may knowest that there is none like unto the Lord our God. In other words, when you ask, it's going to happen. Because I know you know my God's God. Okay, we're on the same page now here, right, Pharaoh? After this, our people going to go, right? And the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people, and they shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. Now, see, this is where Moses gets uppity. Moses, you're supposed to negotiate, bro. You have him in a place where you're like, you going to let us go then? You going to let us go then? And instead, Moses is like, you know what? I think he's seeing things our way. I think he's humbled himself, so we're just going to go ahead and let him have it instead of negotiating. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out in the house, and all the villages, and all the fields, and they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. Stanky dank. And when the Lord saw that there was a respite Or when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. Should have negotiated. No, Moses should have got that in writing. And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod and smite the dust out of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with a rod and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast, and the dust of the land became lice throughout the land of Egypt. He made lice out of the sand. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. They're like, okay, we can make some frogs come running into Pharaoh's room. We can make some water turn all bloodish looking, and we can make rods turn to serpents, but making sand turn to lice, bro, we can't even just catch some lice for that, let alone make some sand turn into some lice. So there was lice on man and upon beast, and the magician said unto Pharaoh, this is the finger of God, bro. We got tricks, but this is the finger of God. You better back down. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord says. So remember, now he goes from Pharaoh admitting it's God, okay? Notice he says Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He didn't say God hardened his heart, okay? He goes from doing tricks that the Pharaoh's magicians can do, because God knows he's going to harden his heart and get him uppity. And then he admits it's God. And then he backs off. And now he's got his magician saying, bro, this is God, okay? Pay attention, because everybody is going to be accountable for what Pharaoh does. He's their federal head. You like Pharaoh being in charge of you? I hope you like this. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to water, and say to him, to the water, thus saith the Lord, let my people go, that he may serve me. Else if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians, they shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground where they are. And I will sever in the land of Goshen, which where my people dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there. In the end thou may knowest that I am the Lord of the land of the earth. In other words, flies are going to get your people, but they're going to not go into Goshen. Why? So you know. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And the Lord did so. And there came a grievous swarm of flies in the house of Pharaoh and upon his servants' houses. And in all the land of Egypt, the land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of the flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land. Ooh, I didn't even have to ask. And Moses said, it is not meet so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes? Will they not stone us? No, we need to go. We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he shall command us. And the Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord God in the wilderness, only you shall not go very far away. Entreat for me. And Moses says, I will go out from thee, and I will treat the Lord the swarms of the flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go and sacrifice the Lord. You got it? And Moses went out from Pharaoh and treated the Lord, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh and his servants, and from his people, and there remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart. Listen, and Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also. Neither would he let the people go. So God didn't have to do much. I want you guys to understand, it's not like God's just like, I'm hardening his heart. Like, I'm just making his heart hard. He does something. There's a rationale to how God hardens his heart. He starts out with signs that Pharaoh's magicians can do. And what Pharaoh is basically saying is, maybe that's God. No, it's not God. Maybe that's God. No, it's not God. And then once he knows he's God, that's when Pharaoh starts hardening his own heart. Okay? So he knows God warms him up to start getting his heart hard, right? Just so God can just show him who's boss. And once God starts showing him and he knows it's God, that's when Pharaoh starts hardening his own heart. So don't think like Pharaoh's just innocent in all this. Now God knows I'm going to push on him a little bit so he gets prideful, okay? But it's not going to take much because he's already like this, okay? Because I want you to plunder him. I'm going to humble this dude to all get out. God doesn't kill Pharaoh that we know of. Okay? We don't have a record of Pharaoh actually dying here. Okay? So he says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Go unto Pharaoh and tell him, Thus saith the Lord God of Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, will hold them still. Behold, the hand of the Lord is upon the cattle that's in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, upon the sheep, and there shall be a grievous murrain. A murrain. What's a murrain? It's like a disease or something. A murrain is a pestilence. It's going to be a murrain. I'm going to bring them a rain. And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall be nothing die that is of all the children of Israel, so you know. And the Lord appointed the set time, saying, tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did the thing in the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died, but the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. Listen, all the cattle of Egypt died. You have these people who are like, we don't know how the Bronze Age collapsed. It was a mystery. All the cattle of Egypt died, okay? All the cattle of Egypt died. And then all the firstborn of Egypt died. And 40 years later, they're going to go kick the crap out of the Amorites and the Hittites. And then after that, the Sea Peoples are going to start raiding everything. And you can't figure out how the Bronze Age collapse happened. Okay? Do you know when the Bronze Age collapse happens? Right around this time. It's like literally in the era of the Book of Judges. That's when the Bronze Age collapse happens. So it's like after all this crap goes down in the space of about 50 years, it's curtains for everybody. God doesn't just humble Egypt. He takes down the three most powerful empires in the world at this time. Okay? He flips the board. That's what he does. He already flipped the board with Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. Okay, that's what allowed Egypt and the Hittites and the Amorites to become powerful in the first place. Okay, he does that, but then they get all uppity with his Jews, and he likes his Jews, and he flips the board again. He's like, now, starting over. We're all going to start from scratch. We'll see who's got the best empire in a little bit. Okay. Pharaoh sent and beheld, and there was not one of his cattle of the Israelites dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And the Pharaoh said unto Moses, and said unto Aaron, take you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it towards heaven in the sight of the Pharaoh. And it shall become small dust in the land of Egypt. There shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. With blains. What is a blain? A blain is a pustule. Oof. Yuck. A pussy boil. So it's going to be nasty. And it's all going to be when Moses is like, have fun with this. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, and the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto him, and the Lord had spoken to Moses. Now he's like, you know what, Pharaoh? You've had your advice. You've had your chance. It's on. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that you mayest know that there is none like me in the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou shalt be cut off from the earth. And in the very deed for this cause have I raised thee up, to show in thee my power, that my name may be declared in all the earth. Listen to what God's saying. He's not hardening Pharaoh for nothing. Remember, in the book of Job, which was just like 200 years before this, everybody seemed to know stuff about the God of the Bible. Now, they got some stuff wrong. They got a little presumptuous, but everybody seemed to know stuff about the God of Noah, okay? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Everybody seemed to know stuff about this guy. And God's like, I don't want them to forget who's God here, and so he's going to do something to be like, I just want you guys to remember who God is, okay? But he's not just doing it for like, I'm going to harden Pharaoh arbitrarily because Esau I loved, and Jacob I loved, and Esau I hated. I just never liked Pharaoh. No. Pharaoh's household is the household that turned on the Jews, killed their kids, enslaved them for no reason, after God blessed the crap out of them. He's saying, for this cause I have raised thee up. There's more than one person that can be Pharaoh. You have to remember. But God is choosing to raise up a Pharaoh who's a particular douchebag. Okay? And that's the one he's going to give it to. Okay? He's saying, I raised you up. He didn't say, I created you to destroy you. He's saying, I made sure you became Pharaoh. Why? Probably because he knows. That's the chip off the old block. His dad would have killed some babies. He would have killed some babies too. Okay? He's probably sitting on his dad's lap when he ordered it. Like, that's my dad. Kill them all. And he says, as yet exalted thou thyself against my people that you will not let them go. He's like, because you're uppity. This is why. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as not hath been in Egypt since the foundation thereof, even until now. Send therefore now and gather thy cattle and all that thou hast in the field, for upon every man and beast shalt there be found in the field, and thou shalt not be brought home. The hail shall be come down upon me, that they shall die. Now, I thought he just said all the cattle in Egypt is dead. So apparently that all the cattle in Egypt is dead was a little bit of an exaggeration. A lot of the cattle in Egypt is dead. He that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses, that he regarded not the word of the Lord, left his servants and cattle in the field. So it's not just Pharaoh now. He's making sure this is known to all of Egypt. And the Egyptians can either do what's good or not regard the God after all these signs that have been happening in Egypt. And the Lord said to Moses, stretch forth thine hand towards heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man and upon beast, upon every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. So it's not just Pharaoh who's a jerk. These Egyptians are jerks too, some of them. And Moses stretched forth his rod towards heaven, and the Lord... Now listen to this. I want you to hear this. He that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh. Okay? Which means that there's people among the servants of Pharaoh that feared the Lord. Okay? They're not all wicked. And he says, and upon the beasts and upon the herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod towards heaven, and the Lord sent a thunder and hail, and fire ran along the ground. Fire ran along the ground. How did that happen? I don't know. And the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. And there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous. Such that there was none like in the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout the land of Egypt all that was in the field, both man and beast, and the hail smote every herb in the field and brake every tree in the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel was, there was no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron, and he said unto them, I have sinned this time. Listen to this. Oh, this Pharaoh, he's finally come to repentance. I have sinned this time. Kind of like Saul comes to repentance when he says he sins against David, but he still keeps trying to kill him. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Boy, that sounds like repentance right there. Let's give this guy the Holy Spirit and wrap him up. Entreat the Lord, for it is enough that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. And Moses said unto him, as soon as I am gone to the city, I will spread abroad my hand to the Lord, and the thunder shall cease, neither shall there be any more hail, that thou may knowest how the earth is the Lord's. But listen to this. We're on to Pharaoh now. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that you will not yet fear the Lord. Moses is like, you know what? We've had this routine a couple times. And the flax and the barley was smitten, the barley was in the ear, and the flax was bold. And the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not yet grown up. And Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh and spread his hands toward the Lord, and the thunders and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured on the earth. And when the Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more and hardened his heart, he and his servants. So it wasn't just Pharaoh, it was his servants. Now, I want you guys to see this, because God is not so arbitrary that he's like, I'm just going to cause them to harden their hearts for no reason. Some of these people are fearing the Lord during this and actually responding and doing what the Lord's telling them to do. Others are like, no, we can take this. Let's do this. Come on. We can take this. They're Lieutenant Danning with Jesus. You don't want to do this. Bring it on. And the heart of the Lord was hard. Neither would he let the children of Israel to go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses. So this is the Lord speaking prophetically by Moses, saying, I know you just got to harden your heart again. Dang. See, he's not just saying, I'm going to harden his heart arbitrarily. He's like, I know the character of this guy. I'm going to push on him a little bit and watch how hard he gets. And the Lord said unto Moses, go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I might show these signs before him, that thou mayest tell the ears of thy son and thy son's son what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. And Moses and Aaron came unto Pharaoh and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Hebrews, How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your coast. And they shall cover the face of the earth, that not one will be able to see the earth. And they shall eat the residue which is escaped, which remaineth from your hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth out of your fields. You remember that famine that everyone else got hit with and you guys got spared from because of our ancestor Joseph? Well, your comeuppance will be due. And they shall fill thy houses and the houses of thy servants and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day when they were upon the earth unto this day. And he turned himself and went out to Pharaoh. Now here's the thing. If locusts eat all your food, then you eat all the locusts. Did you know locusts are kosher? Which means they have to be good for you. They're kosher. Okay? I'm going to show you that when we get there. And Pharaoh's servant said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the man go, that he may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not that Egypt is destroyed? He's like, come on, Pharaoh. Started with them whining, now we're whining. And Moses and Aaron were brought unto the Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? And Moses says, We will go with our young, with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and our herds, we will go. For we must hold a feast unto the Lord. I told you this already. Why are we trying to negotiate now? You had your chance. And he said unto him, Let the Lord be so with you. I will let you go, and your little ones, look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go now Go now ye that are men, and serve the Lord, for you that you desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb, and even all of the hail left. So in other words, Pharaoh's saying, you can go, but not your kids. And Moses is like, nope, not good enough. So Moses stretched out his hand over the land of Egypt, and the Lord saw an east wind brought an east wind upon the land that day, and that night, when it was morning, the east wind brought up the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt and rested on the coast of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there was no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land and all the fruit trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees or in the herbs of the field throughout all the land of Egypt. They ate everything. And Moses called for and for Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin, only this once. You said only this once. That's your final answer. And entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. And they went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, and took away the locusts, and cast them in the Red Sea, and there remained not one locust in all the coast of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he would not let the children of Aaron go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven, and there be thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, Go ye, serve the Lord, only let your flocks and your herds be stayed, let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice to the Lord your God. We're not leaving our flocks and herds here. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not be one hoof left behind, for therefore we must take to serve the Lord our God. And we know not what we must serve the Lord our God until we get there. In other words, he gets his pick of our flocks, so which means we're bringing all of them. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto them, Get thee from thee, and take heed to myself. See my face no more, for in that day thou shalt see my face, and thou shalt die. What is he saying? This all started with Pharaoh trying to make sure that they don't go and join their enemies. They know all the ins and outs of Egypt. Can't have this happen. And they're going to leave, and he's trying anything to try to make them come back after they sacrifice. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well, I will see thy face again no more. And the Lord said to Moses, Yet I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt, and afterwards he will let you go hence. And when he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out altogether. Speak now into the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every man of her neighbor, jewels and silver and clothes. Hey, listen, can I borrow that necklace? Can I just borrow that necklace? Is that cool? He says borrow. Ask. Why does King James say borrow? Sha'al. To inquire, request, demand, ask, borrow, lay to charge, demand, earnestly inquire, obtain, leave, lend, pray, request. Can I borrow your necklace? Hey, we just got this thing, and I don't really have any gold necklaces to wear. Can I borrow that necklace? Oh yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. And the Lord gave favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight I will go into the midst of Egypt. And all the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Egypt shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that you shall know that the Lord does put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these servants shall come down unto me and bow themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all thy people that follow after thee, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. He went out from Pharaoh in great anger. So by this time, Moses starts out, well, like, I'm going to let you glory over me. And by this time, he's just like, I'm out. I said my piece. He's had it with Pharaoh. Now, I want you to pay attention to Moses because he starts out really humble, and then he gets kind of loud towards the end. It's a pattern in Moses' life that is going to bite him the wrong way. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh will not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. See, Moses doesn't really have a right to get angry because God told him all this stuff is going to happen. Remember, up to his firstborn getting killed before any of this started. Okay? Yet Moses is getting frustrated with Pharaoh being hardened. Who's hardening Pharaoh, Moses? Come on, pay attention to what God's doing, not what Pharaoh's doing. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. And the Lord spake to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you beginnings of months, and it shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, and the lamb of the house. So this is the first Passover, okay? I'm about to kill all these guys' firstborn, so I'm going to set you up as a salvation from the death of the firstborn, okay? And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for a lamb. And a lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year, and ye shall take it from the sheep or from the goats. And you shall keep it unto the 14th day of the same month. You shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. So this is their tradition, apparently. You had to keep this lamb in your house for 14 days, for 2 weeks. A cute little lamb. Everyone's getting so attached to it. Kids are playing with it. Aw, he's so cute. Oh, he says bah. Oh, we're feeding it with a bottle. We love this lamb. And then kill it. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and the upper door of the post, so it looks like a cross shape, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh of it in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs, and with the pertinence thereof. The pertinence. The innards thereof. So it looks like you're not gutting this thing, you're just roasting it. And you shall let nothing remain of it until the morning, and that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, with your shoes on your feet, and with your staff in your hands. You shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Now there are going to be some people that are going to teach that Jesus, this is representing Jesus going to hell. The fact that they burn it and throw it in the fire and roast it. Okay, I've heard some weird teachings, and I think they come from Jehovah's Witnesses, about how he's on a stake and not a cross, and that's all just BS. Okay, Jesus goes to Sheol. Sheol is pronounced hell in the King James, but Sheol and Gehenna are different places. There is nothing about Sheol actually having like a lake of fire, a pit of fire in it. It's just not in there. Okay, it does say that this guy is thirsty and miserable, but I don't believe it talks about fire there. If somebody has a Bible verse, again, I might just be forgetting off the top of my head. Feel free to correct me. But thus shall she eat it with the loins girded and the shoes on your feet and your staff in your hand. You shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. Against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. That's why it's called Passover. Get it? And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Now here, this is something that's important. In order to qualify for the Passover, you have to have the blood on your door, and you have to eat the lamb, okay? You have to have the blood on the outside of the house, but inside the house, you have to eat the lamb, okay? This is important because it's going to talk about how basically it's a foretype of how, listen, baptism doesn't save you if you don't have the baptism of the Holy Spirit giving you the Spirit inside of you, okay? So just like you're going to have people who, and I don't know if there's Jews who didn't eat the Passover. Maybe there are. Put the blood on the doorpost but didn't eat the Passover. But it's symbolizing not having an inward change. Okay? And they're all going to consequently die in the wilderness. So there you go. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep a feast unto the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep a feast by an ordinance forever. Forever. And this is where people are like, oh, we got to do this forever. And Messianic Jews are going to be like, we got to do this forever. It's done forever. Christ, our Passover lamb, has been slain. We don't need to keep doing a Passover. Now, if you want to do a Seder dinner and you want to keep a Passover for a memorial, to do it like a holiday, to just teach, that's fine. But we don't have to do this, okay, just because it says forever. He says, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial. Who? Moses and Israel. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout all your generations. You shall keep it as a feast forever. Who is he talking to? Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. Speaking to the congregation of Israel. He's talking about the descendants of Jacob, okay? He's not talking about Christians here. And let's see. He says, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. Okay? So this is the 14th day of the month, the 14th of Nisan at even. It's always going to be Nisan 14. Okay? At even. Which means this is going to be roughly April. Well, it's going to shift every April, but it's going to be roughly April something. 3rd week of April, something like that. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eateth that which is leaven, even the soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether it be a stranger born in the land. Okay? Now, this is going to tell you where they are in Israel. Okay, because on the night that Jesus is betrayed, they're sopping bread in sop. That's not unleavened bread. Okay, they're on the day that you're preparing for the Passover. Okay, and they're just having a dinner. And that's why when Judas gets sent out, they think he's going to get the stuff that's needed for the feast. And that's why the next day, when he's being crucified the next morning, the pharaohs, according to John, or the Pharisees, are worried about being unclean and not being able to eat the Passover that night. Okay, so the night that Jesus has his Last Supper, I know he says, "How I've longed to eat this Passover with you, but I will not eat until I go into the kingdom." He's not saying this is the Passover. Okay, you have to reconcile that. Otherwise, you're going to have some weird 2 days of Passover thing, or you're going to have Matthew and John contradict each other. Okay, so he's very clearly saying, okay, that first night when you eat the Passover, there has to be unleavened bread in the house. There can't be any leaven in the house. So what are you sopping? Okay, he who dips his bread with me in the sop. Okay, what are you sopping? You would take leavened bread and sop up stuff with it, and that would flavor the bread. Okay, so you wouldn't sop unleavened bread because it's like a cracker. Okay, it's just hard bread. It's like tortilla chips or something. So he says, "There shall be no leaven found in your houses, for whoever eats that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land." This is a strict law, okay? So that can't be the night of the Passover, okay? So then it says, "And you shall eat nothing leavened, in your habitation you shall eat unleavened bread." Now, do you know how I know that Jesus is going to be crucified on the day before Nisan 14? Because you would kill the lamb and put its blood on the doorpost that day, and then Nisan 14 you would eat the sacrifice. And it just so happens when you have an argument about Easter between Polycarp and Anicetus of Rome, Polycarp's going to insist, because John taught them, to keep doing the Passover on Nisan 14. Why? Because that Passover is the day that Christ was crucified. That's why. And the Romans want to basically celebrate Easter the Sunday that would roughly correspond to the following Sunday. So every year on a Sunday, they can celebrate the Lord's resurrection, and they have to do a special calendar to calculate the day. And Polycarp is like, no, we're just going to celebrate Nisan 14 because that's when Christ was crucified. We're going to commemorate that every year. And if you want 3 days after that, whatever, go ahead and do that. But that's why they get all the days wrong, because they're going to say, oh, look, the next day is the day of preparation. Okay? They're going to say it's the day of preparation, so therefore it must be a Friday. And it's like, no. There's a day of preparation for this. You don't have a day of preparation you don't have a special day you have to take off to get ready for the Sabbath. That's just a normal week thing you do every week. But you do need a special day of preparation to get all of the leaven out of your house, because listen to what it says. If anybody eats anything that's leaven, your soul's going to be cut off from Israel. Get all the leaven out of your houses. Okay? That's going to take some preparation. And that's the day that's why they say, where do you want us to go to prepare? That's the day of preparation for you to eat the Passover. Okay? So what they're doing is they're preparing, they're getting all leaven out of the house, and they're probably eating the last of the leaven and the leavened bread that they're sopping that night. Okay? And then they think Judas is going to get what's needed for the Passover, because those guys are probably slaughtering lambs all day long in the temple for the Passover, and everyone's going to buy their lamb basically from like a butcher. Okay? And so they think when Judas is sent out that he's going to go get a lamb. And Jesus is saying, oh, how I've longed to eat this Passover, right? But he's not going to eat the Passover because he is the Passover. Remember, that's why he's going to say that this wine is my blood. This is my blood. Anyways, you shall eat nothing. Yeah, this is my body. No, he's tearing it, right? You don't even have pictures of this, and he's got leavened bread and the thing. And that's also why the tradition of, I'm trying to remember which one. One of the two traditions, it's either Eastern Orthodox or Roman Catholic. I think it is the Roman Catholic one. They use leavened bread, and the other ones use unleavened bread. Because one tries to think it's the Passover that they're celebrating, and the other one, or I'm sorry, for the Eucharist. They think it's the Last Supper that's being celebrated, and so they use the unleavened bread, and the other ones use leavened bread. Well, they use leavened bread because Jesus would have used leavened bread on that night. That's because they're sopping it, but also because it's also going to represent the Thanksgiving, which uses leavened bread, which is one of the feasts that we're going to cover when we get to Leviticus. Okay, so we'll get into that in a minute. Anyways, then Moses called for the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and just dip it in the blood that's in the basin and strike the lintel and 2 side posts and the blood with that's in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. So this is going to be the day of preparation. Okay? You got to get the leaven out of your house. You got to kill a lamb. You got to put blood on the doorpost of your house. That's a lot of preparation you got to do. Okay? It says, for the Lord will pass through and smite the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your house to smite you. He will not allow the destroyer. So there is an angel called the destroyer, okay? Now this angel is going to be the same angel that is empowering the Antichrist, because that angel is called Apollyon, which means the destroyer, okay? Now, it's not the word Apollyon here, or Abaddon is what they call it. There's a different word for the destroyer here. He's called Shakath, the ruiner. So it can be the destroyer, it can be the ruiner, but it means the same thing as Abaddon, okay? There's different angels. There's another one that's going to show up when all the children of Israel all get smitten with pestilence in the wilderness, and that one is called the Punisher, okay? So you have these angels called the Ruiner, the Destroyer, the Punisher. So this might not be the exact same angel, but it's kind of a foretype of him, at least, okay? But he's saying he's not going to allow him to come in your house and kill him. He's going to kill all the Egyptians. And boy, do these fallen angels love to do their killing, okay? They're not good angels. They're just executing. So let's see. And he says, and you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and your sons forever. And it shall come to pass when you come to the land which the Lord shall give you according to the day he has promised, you shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? This is important. That you shall say, it is a sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshipped. Okay? It has to happen every year on Nisan 14. Okay? So if you think that Jesus and his disciples are doing it the night before, and then the Pharisees and the Sadducees are doing it the next day, you're not taking this seriously. Oh, but there's a lot of people and a lot of lambs. No. It's the 14th of Nisan. You're going to do this every day forever in your land. Sweep up the leaven every day. Oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, Jesus and the disciples just eating some leavened bread, sopping it up? No. Yeah, we just kind of wing it. No, these guys are strict about this stuff. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote the firstborn of the land of Egypt, and the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat in his house, through the firstborn of the captives that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all of his servants and the Egyptians, and there was a very great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house in which there was not one dead. And he called Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go and serve the Lord as you have said. So I noticed he said he called them by night. In the night, he said, get up and go. Okay? That's interesting. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and go and bless me also. Oh, okay, so Pharaoh calls for Aaron and Moses in the night after all the children are dead. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. They said, we all be dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened. This is interesting. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. So apparently just the ordinance is to have all the leaven out of their houses. They didn't actually do it on this day, but it's a memorial for the fact that they took their bread before it was leavened. So you would have had bread that was already prepared to be leavened, but it was still in its kneading trough. It just wasn't leavened. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men besides children. Now, we know of a certainty that the Pentateuch was edited to update the names of the cities. Okay, we already know this from Genesis, that they had the city named Dan hundreds of years before it's named Dan. Okay, this is going to be a major mistake here that is going to get people to align the dates wrong between the Bible and history, because they're going to say, oh, it's the city of Ramses. Well, apparently this is before Pharaoh Ramses. Okay, but the city is called Ramses by the time this book is circulated around. I don't know exactly when, but the point is there's a discrepancy of like a century or so between Egypt's history and Israel's history, and that's why people get the Egyptian timelines wrong. That's why people get, we don't know why the Bronze Age collapse happened, but apparently the city is not going to be named Ramses because this is not Ramses. This is why people assume that it's Ramses. Okay. The Jews build the city that becomes Ramses. And maybe it was like Ramses was before that, but I'm pretty sure it was like Ramses. It becomes named Ramses after that. Something like that. It's in Patterns of Evidence if you guys want to watch that. And a mixed multitude went up with them, and the flocks and the herds, and very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. So notice it says the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Remember, Paul's going to mention this, okay? It's the sojourning of the children of Israel. Okay, well, what's the children of Israel? It's literally the whole house of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The time from God saying, I'm going to give you all this land, to him actually inheriting it, okay? They're all called the children of Israel. Remember how you have that third generation before the nation or the tribe is named, and then even the forefathers of that tribe come underneath that. That's why you're going to have Eliphaz the Temanite, okay? And that's why you're going to have, his name is, the Horites, is Hori the son of Lotan, the son of Seir, okay? So you're just going to have third generation be where you get the name from. It's the same thing with the Table of Nations. Noah and his sons don't have nations named after them, okay? Abraham and Isaac don't have nations named after them. Israel does, okay? So the children of Israel, that would include Abraham and Isaac, and their sojourning the entire time between God making the promise and now is 430 years, okay? And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, in the self same day it came to pass, that the host of the Lord went out of the land of Egypt. 430 years and about a month. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall be no stranger eat thereof. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when he has circumcised him, he shall eat thereof. So only circumcised people can eat this. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. See how this is a very Jewish thing. An uncircumcised person doesn't do this. If you want to do it, you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. But an uncircumcised person, you people who love your Jewish feasts, does not do this. And Paul says if you're circumcised, well, you're cut off. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of thy house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. Why? Because not a bone of Christ is broken. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in this land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. If I'm a good Jew, I can't let an uncircumcised person eat the Passover. So you want to stick that in your Messianic Jewishness and soak it, okay? One law shall be unto him who is homeborn and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. We out. I'm going to call that good. We're going to pick up now. They're leaving. They're heading towards Mount Sinai, and I'm going to carry you from here in the next one until they actually get to Mount Sinai and have their stuff go on, and then they're going to get their second covenant, and they're going to get their second set of tablets, and then they're going to get there, and the rest is going to be about the ark and the rules and stuff like that. So I'll see if I can get through this in 3 parts. I'm going to do my best, but that's about a third of it. Let's see. Yep, that's going to be, they're now leaving Egypt, and they're now beginning their sojourning, okay? They're wandering. So you guys be blessed by this. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Batman out. Peace.
Peace, I'm out. I'm Batman.